Well, good morning, Patrick Kennedy. How are you today?
Good morning, Brett. I'm well. How are you?
Great. Happy Monday. Cheers.
Yeah, you too. You too. Yep. Good to be with you.
You too. I'm pretty healthy, but one of the things I'm not very healthy about is I need my coffee. So I'm having coffee, but whatever. You can't be perfect, right?
There's some health advantages to coffee. I hear not too
Yeah.
much coffee. Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard that.
always good to have a good cup every morning.
So we're gonna interview each other here, but I know you have you. I did too, by the way. You had a run in a corporate career and then left it. I want to hear more about your transition from corporate guy to self-employed coach guy. So let's start with that. Hey, why don't you give the audience a quick glimpse of who you are and then what happened recently and then what you're doing now, and then we'll drill
Yeah.
down.
Okay,
So
sounds good. Well, so I spent over 20 years in a leadership position in the healthcare industry, mostly within the hospital and healthcare settings. And about 9 years ago now, I was fortunate enough to transition into an executive level director position within an organization. And from the very beginning of that was flourishing professionally. I was growing, I was learning. I was fortunate enough to be put in positions to learn more, not just about myself, but more how to be an executive level leader within a very large organization, healthcare organization. And a lot of individuals kind of took me under their wing, if you want to say it that way, and helped me grow and learn. And so I was on this path really of taking the next step in the corporate ladder to become the next executive leader within the organization. And the tables turned a little bit as there were some retirements and some executive leaders that left the organization, and the tables turned a little bit. And it's interesting. I look back and things happen for a reason, and we might not know in the moment what that is, and it might feel really bad that we don't get some sort of promotion, or we don't get that next job that we've just been working hard toward. And it helped to kind of step back a little bit and reflect, where am I? What am I doing? Who am I? Where do I want to be in the future, down the road? Not just 6 months or a year, but 5, 10 years down the road. What do I want to be doing? How do I see my life kind of playing out? And with that, looking at what's most important to me, what are my priorities in my life? What are gonna put, to use one of your famous terms, to put the odds in my favor? What do I need to do to be able to get where I want to be in life, and not just necessarily from a career standpoint, right? And so I was spending time looking at that, thinking about that. I was fortunate enough about 4 years ago to have an executive leadership coach that I worked with, and she is still my coach today. I still work with her today, and is still instrumental in helping to navigate some of these challenges. And I'm going to come back to coaching later on kind of in the conversation, but that relationship, and there are certainly others, but that relationship with my coach absolutely helped me navigate adversity, help me navigate who I am, what am I doing, where do I want to be. And I would say that I already had resiliency in my life. I had adversity many times over in my life previously. And so I was able to lean on those experiences, and how I was able to bounce back from those past experiences in this kind of most recent experience where I was laid off from the organization that I had been with for many, many years, and had served, I think, dutifully for many years. And that was a tough pill to swallow, because I'd spent so much time giving of myself, working hard for that next ladder, or that next step in the ladder of the corporate rung, if you will. At the same time, again, it allowed me to kind of step back and look at, what am I doing? Where am I in my life? Personally, professionally, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? And I'll bring that back around, that statement, that question, back around to the coaching aspect of this. And that same executive coach that I was fortunate enough to develop a relationship with 4 years ago and continue, saw something in me that she thought I would be an exceptional leadership coach. And so I got into a coach training program, completed the coach training program, and began coaching clients about 2 years ago now. And so as this event most recently happened to me from a career standpoint, I leaned on my values, which are respect, communication, and service. I leaned on my values, particularly in this instance around service. What can I do to fulfill my value of service? And what I was experiencing from the coaching that I was doing of others was that I was providing service to them. I feel like my role as a coach for them was to support them, was to be there for them, to help them navigate whatever it is that they want to navigate in their life. And that's where that service mentality comes from. So coming out back in January, things kind of happened from a corporate standpoint. And I took the opportunity to spend some time again on myself and who am I? Where do I want to be? Really, really have enjoyed the coaching, leadership coaching. I've also enjoyed doing leadership development and team building with individuals, but also with teams. And so I developed and created Magnolia Coaching and Consulting out of that. The Magnolia name is symbolic, and there's a short story, and a picture on my website that my father, my late father, planted this southern magnolia tree as a sapling that was probably about, I don't know, 3, 4 feet tall. And this tree today stands probably 30 feet tall, 20 feet wide. It's just this massive magnolia tree. Right. And if you do a little research, magnolias are one of the most resilient trees that there are. They can withstand hurricanes, tornadoes, strong winds, hail, rain, yeah, you name it, and they can pretty much sustain it. And so that's where the name comes from, because my goal with helping others through this leadership coaching and leadership development business is I want to help authentic teams and people achieve their dreams.
Nice.
There's a Disney quote I like to use that says, if you can dream it, you can do it. Right. And I want to help people do it, because I think in the coaching and development space, it's all about helping others and supporting others through service.
Beautiful. I love it. I love your Magnolia story, by the way.
Thanks.
I'm sitting here wondering, I don't know if you did we talk about what my dissertation topic was for my PhD?
We did, but I always loved hearing it. So
Yeah,
why don't you let's talk about that.
I did. I wanted to do a quantitative study on how coaching builds resilience because I've seen it in my own coaching business over and over and over. As I got into designing that dissertation proposal, I learned that it would take like over 100 participants, and I couldn't be anybody I've coached. So I'd have to basically pay 100 who got coaching, 100 who did not, and compare all the statistics on that. That would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars, and years. In a moment of frustration, I flipped to doing a qualitative study just because I wanted to get it done. And I decided to do qualitative research on how people go through adversity. And I narrowed that down to I narrowed it down to middle aged corporate male executives who lost their job to layoff and how that went for them, thinking it would be a quick and easy, fast, cheap topic. And it became fascinating. And as I was doing the work, my wife was diagnosed with ALS, and it shifted from a project I just wanted to get done to one that became kind of meaningfully connected to my journey. But what I found, I interviewed men who had lost very successful male corporate executives who got caught up in a reorganization and lost their jobs, how that went. And the what I heard became just so deep and fascinating. But one of my favorite findings, and I think you're experiencing this, was they looked back on that as a blessing. And I was as a blessing in disguise, even though it was painful and all the things, it became an event that forced them and gave them an opportunity to go do something new, to grow, to dig deep inside, to reevaluate what is life about, what are their values about. And they came out of it healthier, happier, all the things. So I was going to, like, imagine if you didn't have that job change and you're still in your old job, you'd be fine, but you'd be missing all this too, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would, and you know, the thing is, I wouldn't have known that I'm missing it,
Right. Isn't that
right?
that scares me, by the way.
Yeah.
You're one event for me too. If I hadn't have had the things that knocked me out of my corporate career, I could be in it today and not know the difference.
Mhm.
And be I use the term autopilot. Be on autopilotly trudging through life to a slow death. Instead, I'm much more aware. I'm sorry, not to shift this back to me, but I'm so thankful that happened because I could easily not know the difference. And we look around us, and there's most people are kind of walking through life that way,
Mhm.
having not had the chance or not forced to reevaluate and adjust. So I jumped in on you there, but
No, so I love your and you know your book, Autopilot to Authentic.
yeah,
What
yeah.
say more about autopilot. What does that mean?
For me, it was on a path, career wise, I was on a path that was put in place for me by what I thought other people thought I should do.
Mm,
Was normal, what was cultural. I was a Boy Scout as a kid, good kid, and then I got a degree in a field I was not interested in, but it paid well. And then I got married right away and started having kids. And I was thought I was happy providing for my family and being a good employee and getting promoted and all that thing. I never once thought, what do I want? Like what's in my heart? And 20 years later, it kind of all fell apart. Now, I call it, I guess, a midlife awakening, but I started to really, in my mid 40s, ask myself, is this what it's all about? Literally trading this much time for some money and raising this family. And they were all getting older. And maybe it's a normal midlife thing where we wonder, what's more? What am I here for? And then I realized I was literally on a career path that was put in motion before I even thought about it. And when I was
mhm,
younger, I knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a writer. Then I found out those jobs didn't pay very well. So I chose engineering. So it wasn't, I raised a good family. I was a good husband, good father, but kind of just singularly focused on providing for them in a culturally normal career path with a paycheck and a pension and all that, and not admitting that inside of me was a guy who wanted to help people and he wanted to
mhm,
be keep growing and stretching and experiencing, and that job didn't provide that.
mhm,
Yeah, so that was my shift from autopilot to authentic. I think if you're clear on the direction you're setting for yourself and you dial in habits and mechanisms to go there on a, a thought out autopilot, that could be a good thing. But it needs to be a destination you have set, not your parents
right.
or the culture of the time you grew up. So yeah, and I'm so aware that I could still be on that same old autopilot and not know the difference
Mhm,
and
mhm,
be this kind of drifting older man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you just said there around, you know, that corporate job, it may be right for you. It may work for you. You may flourish and be able to succeed. I would you can maybe set that path to some extent, but I would argue or challenge that in a corporate role, how much can you really control that path and that destination? Because you're on that path and someone else to an extent is controlling it. You're
Totally.
not completely controlling that path. And I think there's probably people out there that believe they are controlling that path 100%, but they're not.
They're
That
not.
that corporation and that what's gonna happen, they don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow.
Right. No, you're 100% correct. You could be doing a perfect job in your role, in your job, and in a meeting 1,000 miles away, there's a discussion and your division gets sold or closed or whatever, and you're one meeting away from not having that job. Yeah, I think the most job security is an entrepreneur's ability to go create value and make money. I call it when I left my corporate job and became a recruiter, and right away it did really, really well. And money was like falling out of the sky. And I thought, wow, why did I wait so long? Now it didn't last very long. Big recession came and that all changed. But I realized my ability to have confidence that I can step into the world and create value and get paid for it is much more job security than A plus ratings in my job. and and
Hmm.
so yeah, and I know a lot of people that they're not ready for the job loss if it happens. They get their identities tied up in it and all that. But
Hmm.
although my research, every one of the people I studied in my research came out of it better off, thankful that it happened. They all had to go through a kind of a tough journey, and I'm sure you did as well, of getting through it. But once you get on the other side of it, they're looking back going, whew, thank God that happened. Bring it on.
I was obviously not in your study, but I am absolutely squarely 100% what you just said right there. Looking back, now again, I feel like over the course of my life, I've built a lot of resiliency because of other things that have happened. You know, failed marriages, my father passing away from pancreatic cancer for me at a fairly young age. And, you know, one of the things I think about a lot and try to do to serve him and what he asked me to do was, you know, Brett, I was the one that told him he had cancer.
My gosh, that's hard.
He had surgery and you know going through recovery, and my mom and I were there with him the next morning after his surgery, and his doctor hadn't come in yet, but we got there before the doctor did. And you know he asked me, you know, what's the story? And I sat right there at the foot of his hospital bed and told him everything that happened, and that you know he had pancreatic cancer, and we talked about some other things. And you know he said, well, just take care of your mom.
Wow.
And so that, among other things, that, you know, it strengthens you as a person, and you learn how to persevere through adversity. You learn how to build resiliency. Now that event this past January, from a layoff perspective, in the grand scheme, did it sting a little bit? Yeah, sure, because it came out of left field. I had no idea, you know, it was going to happen. But having build a strong system of support around me, my wife, my immediate family, that certainly helped navigate that. And being on this side of it now, and honestly, it didn't take very long. Being on this side of it now and looking back, I am exactly what you just said. I'm glad that happened. I am a much stronger person. I'm a much better person. And now I'm able to create what I want to create for myself and my life and my job and my family.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
that's beautiful. That is so good. I bet if would your wife say you're a better version of you now, post January?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
100%. You know, just simply because of less stress, anxiety that came along with, you know, where I was at the time.
yeah. I've had clients, good friends who the worst part of their week was Sunday night,
Mm,
kind of going to a not a depression, but a funk because Monday morning was coming. And even
mhm.
though great job, great pay, all the great stuff, they were inwardly miserable re-entering every week that treadmill or that hamster wheel.
Mhm.
You're a perfect prototype of my dissertation study.
Yep. Yep.
Hey,
And so what go ahead.
what I'm playing with right now is and clearly resilience is a really key theme, but I'm landing on it on a flourishing resilience. Like resilience alone is necessary, but some people grind through life. Just here's another challenge. Let's grind through it. And I think there's another way where you can like, when things get hard, they're hard. I'm not saying you smile through them, but we can have episodes of absolute flourishing over and over and over in our lives. And I'm experiencing it, and I want to help other people like dial in their thinking and their lifestyle, their lives philosophy around the possibility as you get older, you get more flourishing. And I didn't know if you can talk to that or not, but I'm kind of landing on that as sort of my brand more than resilience. Is resiliently flourishing.
Yeah, I think given where we are in today's society, I mean, the turbulent waters that are out there across the world, in our country, in our state, locally, wherever, anytime we have the opportunity, I think, to help other people flourish, not just be resilient to your point, but flourish, it can only make me better as an individual in life, in our jobs, in our families, or whatever it might be. I think, you know, resiliency will help us survive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to flourish,
Yeah. No,
right?
it does not.
And I think you've really got to put kind of the time in and the effort in, and knowing, going back to what you said earlier, knowing who you are, what are your values, what are you doing, who are you helping, who are you serving, where are you going, spending time like we did, for example, in your master class. It's just a phenomenal experience to be able to think introspectively and connect with other human beings that maybe having the same challenges, right? And we're there to help and support each other grow and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up so many things there that I agree with. We live, you just mentioned it. If you want to find some problems, just turn on the news or look in this machine of doom. And you could spend all day completely covered up by it and get depressed and anxious and all that. Or if I remind my wife of this, if we turned off all electronics and just live, we wouldn't know any difference. And she's from Ukraine, so she has family in Ukraine. I respect the pain she's going through, but so much of how we are is how we perceive things and where we aim our attention, first of all, and then how do we think about the things we're looking at. And it could be you and I can step into the exact same weather and I could be as depressed as hell and you're as happy as ever. And there's no difference, right?
Yep.
In the world. So, and I know this, a happy, healthy, flourishing human is far more productive in whatever they're doing, whether self employed or working in a job. They're better husbands, better fathers. Everything's better if you have a flourishing life going on. So it's not just more pleasant, it's also more productive and more creative and more serving better. So there's like zero negatives to a flourishing life.
I think it goes without question. And to your point, individuals, and I think any research would show this, individuals within a corporation who are more engaged, who have a sense of well being, they take care of themselves, are going to be more productive, and thereby the organization is going to be more productive.
Yep. There and make more money and hire more people and grow faster, all the things. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, an optimistic leader is far more effective, productive, whatever, better leader than a pessimistic leader. A healthy leader is better than an unhealthy leader. We take all the stuff for granted. You look around, there's a lot of not really good leaders with all the not really good behaviors that just get away with it. Yeah.
to, to the leadership point there, one thing I have subscribed to and really tried to live by for many, many years from a leadership standpoint, and I am attempting to infuse this in my business from a coaching and development standpoint, and that is being a servant leader.
Mm.
It goes back to that service value that I talked about for myself, but being a servant leader and something kind of simple to do. If you just take your hands and do this,
Mhm.
right? Think about that as the leadership pyramid flipped upside down.
Mm.
The traditional org chart is this, right?
Right.
So if we do this, it's the servant leader, it's the leader that's at the bottom supporting those above who are out there
In the road.
doing the work, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah. And that takes a lot of vulnerability, takes self-awareness, it takes emotional intelligence, it takes knowing yourself to be able to be that type of leader. And that's what I have always tried to live by, and again trying to infuse in my business.
Nice. That's good. That's so good. What advice could you give your peers that are still in the corporate world, feeling disenchanted or feeling stuck or feeling whatever feels they feel? Have you thought about that? Like a general advice for a stuck corporate employee?
Yeah, I've got some clients now that's true. That's the case. They're feeling stuck, or maybe they're not really sure how to navigate a situation, or maybe it's a career transition that they're considering. They're just not happy where they are. And I think that the advice is first and foremost, and this goes to my lead better philosophy in my business, is you've got to get real to start with.
Mm. Real with what?
So Yeah, great question. Great question. So there's really kind of three components in my philosophy around leading better, and that's engaging with purpose, excuse me, engaging with purpose, and that engaging with purpose is getting real with yourself that you need to recognize, hey, I need some help here. I'm not really sure where I'm going, what I'm doing. Maybe you're that sailboat that's just kind of wandering out there in the waters, navigating the waters, and you don't have clear direction on who you are, where you want to be. For example, getting clear on what are your strengths, spending some time knowing what your strengths are, and then leveraging what you can off of those strengths to be able to build yourself, to grow yourself.
Yeah.
So my advice is you've got to get clear with yourself first.
Cool. No, that's good. My experience with people is most are not. And like, that you mentioned the Best Life Masterclass. I think common denominator, and we've finished 4 cohorts now. For most people that have gone through it, one of their major takeaways was this provided them a unique place and opportunity to really get honest with themselves and to take some time to reflect on where they are in their journey of life. So many people just don't do that. And then days or years, decades go by, and they look back and realize, oops, or they just lived a fraction of the life they could have lived.
Right.
Not bad lives,
Yeah.
just they could have done so much more.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. Did you have any other like major takeaways from your involvement in the Best Life Masterclass?
Well, I think you're spot on with what you just said. It's helping people understand who they are, maybe change some things about themselves that they've recognized through that masterclass process with you, and to be able to use your term flourish, right? I think the other aspect of that program, which is so good, by the way, I mean, it is just very well thought out. The curriculum is excellent. The topics are very pertinent and helpful as an individual. So those that are out there listening to this, please participate with this guy. It's an amazing course. It will absolutely challenge you and help you grow.
Thank you.
I think the other aspect of it, though, I remember you saying day one, is the ability to connect to each other, the ability to connect humans to humans, right? And I've made, a couple of relationships out of this that I plan to continue. And that's been the other aspect of being on the other side of the corporate job, so to speak, now is the ability to connect with people and those connections that I want to make, not necessarily that I'm have to make from a corporate standpoint. I've been able to make those friendly connections with people. And so the connections aspect is, I think, also an invaluable part of that program.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. I love personally, selfishly, I love connecting people because I get to like be proud of what happens when people who didn't know each other get to know each other and all the unfoldings that happen. I'm really diving into AI and all the technology, and I'm choosing to be optimistic about it. And my mind is just on fire with creative ideas. But I'm also 100% convinced, and I grow in this conviction that our human connection, face to face, preferably in person, but on video too, is more and more and more valuable. And I think we need to more intentionally nurture that as technology continues to take over. It's just my feeling, and that's where coaching is so powerful. The friendships and colleagues and just human to human bonding, which happens in the master class but happens outside of it, is I think going to become more and more sacred. What do you think?
100% agree. And one thing you said there, you used the word intentional. I think that we have to be intentional in making those connections with other people, because that intentionality, it helps to, again, going back to what I said, who do we want to make that connection with, number one, and being a little bit vulnerable. There's I've made new connections and gotten to know new people in the last 5+ months, 6 months now. I've probably met more new people in that time period than I did in a 20-year career. I'm being a little stretching it a little bit, but I've met a lot of new people, and I had to be I wanted to be, and I had to be at the same time intentional about making those connections. We can sit here and type in a little AI chat or Google or whatever you want to type into. That's easy to do sitting behind a computer screen, right? But to go be intentional about connecting with other individuals. And when you are intentional and you connect with other people, being curious about them, about their experiences, about their thoughts and perspective, and that intentionality and the curiosity has helped me tremendously.
No, I hear you, buddy. And I know I've met more people. It's been a while now, but that is the intentionality about meeting new people has changed my life. And it wasn't something I was inherently doing. I was taught that by my coach. One year I met 100, I had 100 cups of coffee challenge. I
Mm,
challenged myself. He challenged me. So I said, all right, have coffee twice a week with somebody else over 50 weeks. I did that. Incredible, incredible. Because you just never know. You're going to meet somebody new who you could become a business partner or a whatever. And then also you're a good friend when you stay in touch with your friends. Again, our jobs and technology and all the stuff will, unless we're intentional, will take us away from making time to meet with people in person.
mhm, mm.
I'm glad that I was nudged in that direction, or I might be behind my computer all day and have very few friends.
Yeah. Sitting in an office or a cubicle somewhere, trading time for money.
All that.
Yeah,
Now, some people are perfectly positioned in that time for money career, and that's where they belong, and they're flourishing.
sure.
I'm not anti-job. It's got to be the right job, I think.
I think that's the key right there, right? It's got to be the right job in the right organization with the right people at the right time because
Yeah.
organizations will shift,
Yes.
right? Their culture is going to shift.
Yes.
May not be today, may not be tomorrow, next year, 5 year, whatever. The culture is going to shift. And I think going back to what we kind of started with around knowing ourselves best, having awareness, knowing our values, our priorities, and making sure that those things continue to line up with whatever that culture of the organization is can help us flourish in being in a corporate job, what we were talking about earlier, right? But it's staying true to our values and our priorities and who we are and where we are.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think my personal philosophy, and I teach this in a master class, is that it starts with knowing who you are. And that's not a one time thing. Continue to be honest with yourself and reflect on what are your values, what's important, to know yourself really well, and have a vision for the future where you're going to continue to grow in those elements of what you are until you die. This old notion of retirement is really bad. It's bad for us.
Mhm.
I'm at an age where a lot of my friends have quote retired, and many have died or
Mm.
gotten sick right away or starting having an affair right away. All the things that happen when you shift out of a meaningful pursuit. I plan to be meaningfully growing until I die, and I think that'll be my happiest journey versus calling everything done and then just relaxing on some money I made. That I don't think is a good philosophy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's all culturally normal to commit to growing, but I and I might be wrong, but I believe I'm right. I have a lot of research behind it, but constant growing. Actually, I'm 64. I want this year to be my healthiest year ever. I know eventually, when I'm 114, for example, it's probably not realistic that my next year will be my healthiest ever. But right now, I can be. But I think when I'm 114 and I'm going to 115, that next year could be my best growth as spiritual growth or like mentoring growth or giving back or painting, whatever. I'm going to keep on growing.
So you see growth in kind of different buckets.
Yeah. The,
How so?
No, and those, we did that circle of life exercise in a master class. Identify your values or your priorities. Mine are number one, spiritual. My relationship with God is my number one priority. Number two for me is my health, kind of a combination of physical and emotional health. Number three are all the relationships in my life, from my wife, my kids, my friends, my colleagues, people. That's number three. Number four for me right now is serving the work I do, which is all helping people, but the work of helping people, that's where businesses, making some money. For five, for me, this is new, is I'm feeling a real urge to be more creative. I
Mm,
drew it on my circle is that's my priority, creativity, like on TikTok or wherever. And then I've added a new priority, number six, is experiences. I only have 51 years left, so I got to really get about experiencing things in life I haven't done yet. I want to keep doing new things, whether it's taking a kayak on Bass Lake or going to Uganda in August, which we're going. Expensive bucket list thing to walking on a new trail I haven't been on before. That I'm
mhm.
feeling empowered to do that. So those are my areas. So as I get older, I want to grow spiritually. I want to grow in health. Now, eventually, this body's going to start to give out, but there's a lot I can do to keep it going. And I'm pretty optimistic about what's going to happen with technology on our health, emotion, mental, and physical. So who knows? 115 might be not a big deal when I'm 115, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And in relationships, there's no reason I can't continue to grow as a friend, as a father, as a husband, keep meeting new people until I die. To me, that's growth in relationship.
Hmm.
At some
Hmm.
point, I'll probably back off on the work piece and replace it with something else. But right now, I'm trying to grow my business of helping people. I want to grow in creativity, grow in doing more and more experiences. So those are my definitions of growth. And then we
Yeah,
talked about goals in our master class, but I'm a big believer in setting goals to keep growing, not in a grinding hard way, but in a keeping focus on it. Goals help you find motivation to keep in that direction. Sometimes big goals, sometimes habit changes. And for me, that's my formula. And I know I'm weird. Some people look at me and go, dude, you're exhausting me. Sorry. You don't have to be like me, but I'm the happiest. And I think I'm the most best version of myself in terms of how I can contribute with this formula.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you say it's weird, but I would say it's a model that people aspire to be how you are.
Thank you.
I want to ask you one thing. You talked about service to others and growing, and I know you're working on this master class, flourishing at work. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you like
Thrive at work,
thriving at work?
which is
Okay.
exact synonym to flourishing. Yeah, we go ahead. You were asking me a question?
Yeah, just talk a little bit about it. Like what are
Yeah.
your goals?
It's basically the best life masterclass reframed for organizational application. Basically, a leader or HR leader or organizational leader would hire us to come in and deliver this program to their leadership team or another team to help employees flourish and become more resilient in the workplace and to be an antidote to all the or many of the challenges that are in the workplace today of burnout, of hopelessness, of anxiety, and basically retool the employees, have their own agency around lining up their work life with their personal life in a way where they have more well-being, and which leads to more productivity, less burnout, and then of course better retention, better leaders. So I've had several past graduates of the Best Life Masterclass come to me and say, "Dude, I wish you had this at work. I wish you had this at my company." So Sheffield and I have put together the program called Thrive at Work Masterclass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, having you've been in the corporate world as well. You've gotten feedback from others. Myself haven't been there. I think it could be an invaluable program for organizations to tap into. So wish you the best with it.
Thank you. No, I'm excited to have it out there. What do you see next for you, and how can we help you?
Yeah, I mean, what's next is I think that is continuing to be passionate about where I am in my life. You talked about those priorities and that wheel of priorities, and I have my priorities and making sure that whatever is next, whatever's on the horizon that maybe I can see, maybe there's something on the other side of the horizon that I don't see yet, but continuing to build strength in my priorities in what I'm doing for myself and for my family. Specifically within the business, one thing that is really exciting in the short term and actually is beginning this week is I found a program with the Campbell University MBA program and students and applied and was my business was accepted. And so what's happening is I will have a team of 3 MBA students that will basically consult for me on my business. So
Nice.
they will come in and do kind of a full business analysis. They'll help me develop a business plan. And at the end of it, they will make recommendations to me about you need to do, or we would recommend you do X, Y, and Z to help your business flourish, to use your term,
Yeah.
and grow. So I'm really, really excited about that. I didn't even know this program existed, and I found out about it through the Small Business Center of North Carolina, which is operated locally here through Wake Technical Community College. But I'm really excited about that opportunity to learn more about business. And again, going back to that service value and mentality, I'm really excited about working with students because I
Yeah.
did that throughout my career in healthcare. I would have interns that would come in and they would learn and they would help support our what we were doing within the organization. So I'm really excited to get back into that, working with students and being able to help them complete whatever it is they need to complete to achieve their master's degree. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing what you learn from these bright young kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
I too, I love working with students, but I'm recognizing that their lives are so different than mine that I think I can relate to it, but then at times I wonder, can I? It's just so different. Yeah. Well, this has been great. Hey, so how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, great question. Website is out there, magnoliacoachingconsulting.com. There's information out there. There's a way to contact me directly. LinkedIn is a great way to connect, and we can start there. But yeah, Brett, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. You're just such a positive, authentic person, and it who you are really comes across and affects other human beings in a positive way. And I hope a lot more people get the opportunity to connect with you and work with you.
Thank you. I appreciate what you just said. I hope the same for you as well, because I know
Yeah,
you're a gifted coach with a amazing energy and capability to help people with a heart of service. All right, we'll
thanks.
let you go here. I'm going to press stop. Hang on.